Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for this TTG seminar. This virtual event marks the start of TTG's second week-long Digital Destinations Festival. We held one back in May and it was very successful. So this week again, we're holding a whole week of destination-related events for travel agents and tour operators. So we've got a range of training events going on. We are joined by our partners Atlantic Canada, the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel, Jamaica, Samoa, South Tyrol and Queensland throughout the week. So please check ttgmedia.com/destfest to find out more about those events and how you can join them. I'm Pippa from TTG. I'll be hosting this seminar today, and we're really going to be looking more closely at two of the UK's very favourite destinations, the Caribbean on the long haul side and the Balearics on the short haul side, to find out more about how they are adapting and preparing to welcome tourists back, and how local governments are supporting those local industries in doing so. Today seems quite a fitting day to be talking so positively about the rebirth of tourism, I think. And we know that a lot of our travel agent readers are going back into their stores today, just a couple of individuals perhaps. So really exciting green shoots there. We know that EasyJet has relaunched flights today, just to Glasgow so far, but really exciting to see again something happening there. And it's going to be great to spend the next 40-50 minutes talking through all the positive things that are going on the ground in these two key destinations too. So joining us on behalf of the Balearics is Manuel Porras. He is Director of the Balearic Islands Tourism Strategy Agency. Good afternoon to you, Manuel.
Good afternoon, Pippa. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, thank you. And on behalf of the Caribbean, Carol Hay, who is CEO of Mackenzie Gale, which represents the Caribbean Tourist Organisation's UK and Europe chapter. Good afternoon, Carol.
Good afternoon, Pippa, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really great to be here.
We would love people to ask questions while we're chatting. If you can press the Q&A button at the bottom on Zoom, that would be preferable for asking questions. You can use the chat function, but questions would be great if you can leave those on the Q&A button, and I'll try and keep track of them. Super. Well, Manuel, I'll come to you first if I can, because it's a really exciting day in Spain. We know that Spain has announced it's hoping to welcome visitors back as early as the 21st of June, and that they wouldn't necessarily need to quarantine coming to Spain. And I gather the Balearics is also welcoming an aeroplane from Germany today, its first aircraft for German tourists, which is really good news. So is it quite an excited vibe on the islands at the moment?
Yeah, it is. It's a very busy day for us today. I have to say that explain to everyone which is what happens here in Spain and specifically in Balearic Island, just to get a safe destination. And for us, the test of today is that it's just practicing our implementations for the tourists that will come next week. So, in order to clarify a little bit, in Spain, the de-escalation plan is based on 4 phases, and it's implemented in the regional level. I think maybe in UK it's different, but here in Spain, the de-escalation is at the regional level, and we have from phase 0 to phase 3, and diminishing the restrictions and allowing more activities as long as the phase changes regarding the epidemic situation of in each region. Next week, as you said, the state of alarm in Spain will be vanished at all. So, and a great number of regions will enter in the so-called new normality. And also on June 21st, frontiers will be open and international visitors will be able to arrive here in Spain without any quarantine. Mm-hmm. What nowadays the situation here in Balearic Island, we are in the last of the 3 phases, so we are in phase 3, and next Monday, 22nd, we will reach the new normality. So it means we come back to the previous normality that's not true, but because all have changed here. But we start to do the same things we do in the past. So for us, it's a very good not news, and we are very looking forward to this day. And in this situation, tourist activity is to be restored gradually and safely. Thanks to the huge effort made by the Balearic Society and its administrations. And for us, it's very important that because we think that safety and security will be a very important variable in the process of purchase of our customers. So it's important to say that we are a safe destination today because everyone here has committed in that thing, and we have we have done a very huge effort to be in the place we are now. Just reminding you that we are here in this positive situation because in March we decided to close our islands to all national and international visitors. So we close together, we quarantine ourselves. So we have a very huge important effort for that closure. But we are now here. We were the first to close and the first to open. So we are very proud of our effort. So I don't know if I keep on telling you things you want.
Well, I do have some further questions, but I'll switch over to Carol now. Get her to give us kind of a bit of a scene setter for where we're up to in the Caribbean, and then I'll come back to you and ask some more, Manuel. Thank you. Carol, similarly, what's the latest situation on the ground in the Caribbean? Obviously, it's long haul from the UK market, and a lot of the conversation at the moment in the UK is about getting these short haul air corridors opened or whatever. It perhaps feels like it's going to be longer before we're able to fly to the Caribbean, maybe, but there's green shoots in terms of the US market, I gather, into the Caribbean.
Yes, there is. And, you know, with the Caribbean, we have to bear in mind that we are speaking about over 30 countries, some with strong linkages to the UK, others to the Netherlands, others to France, others to the USA. So for us, it's a case of one size or one model will not fit all. Now, one of the things to understand about the Caribbean is that it is a very resilient region, and the Caribbean has a lot of experience in dealing with crises because we are lush, we're tropical, and we are susceptible to hurricanes and inclement weather patterns. So it meant once our region was aware of this global situation, we were able to work with all our agencies across the Caribbean, those who deal with the ports, the environment, emergency, disaster preparedness. We were able to come together very quickly and put a plan in place to basically lock down our borders. And that's because we already have the mechanisms in place to deal with situations such as these. And there's been a lot of positive feedback for the Caribbean in saying that, you know, people like the way we've handled it. Yes, we've had cases in the Caribbean and we've also had deaths, but we've been able to contain it because we are strategic where emergency and disaster preparedness is concerned. So moving to the next phase now is the actual recovery. And again, we've had to look at how do we handle this as a region in this expansive Caribbean Sea with so many entry points because most of our countries are islands. So we've again had to work collectively, and we've been reviewing what the different destinations are doing. Now, yes, the US market is critical for the Caribbean, but we are mindful that the US right now is going through many challenges. So they too need time to sort out you know, themselves and their travel protocols and the rate of COVID, etc. They have to deal with those issues. So one of the things that we've had to do in the Caribbean is, first of all, to look at domestic tourism. That's happening. We're also looking at clusters of regional tourism. So say, for example, the Dutch islands, you know, persons within those islands can travel, you know, in that cluster, and the same again with, say, for example, Guadeloupe and Martinique. Now, what those islands are now doing is saying that in a short time from now, visitors from the Netherlands will be able to go into Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, and visitors from France will also be able to go into Martinique and Guadeloupe. So we've had to handle this in clusters, and we've also had to take into account the synergies that certain destinations have already. Now, looking at the big picture, how's the Caribbean going to handle this? Well, we've seen that some destinations have already started to receive visitors, which is encouraging, because at the end of the day, someone has to take that first step. And for us in the Caribbean, it's all about learning, because there are some destinations, for example, Antigua, that have been able to accept visitors. And we've also seen that Jamaica has a number of flights coming in. And I know that Jamaica will be speaking later in the week, but, you know, I've been looking at some of what they have done. And what we've realized in this whole recovery is that tourism is delivered by the communities. So it was about having a plan that made it quite clear to the communities, those who deliver on our tourism product, that there is a plan that's going to take care of their well-being, because there was concern about looking after our people as well. So destinations are phasing the recovery, and the destinations that are now preparing to accept international visitors, some of the destinations, for example, are now saying that you need to complete online a form that states that you have gone through the protocol and the tests in your home country and you are safe to travel. And this must be completed in advance before they travel. Other destinations will have those rapid response COVID test kits on arrival, so that when you arrive in a destination, you will do your swab and it will be checked there and then to see if there are traces of COVID within your system. Now, this is important for two reasons. One, we don't want people to spend all of that money and come to the Caribbean and then we've got to put them in isolation. Not good for them, not good for our destination brands. And also to go back to our communities, because tourism is such a hands-on business, we didn't want to create this second wave within the Caribbean by not being mindful as to who is entering our borders. Now, there is a cycle and a circle for that, because we've also got to rely on the protocols in our source markets as well. So we've got to rely on the United Kingdom, all of Europe, North America, Latin, South, Central America. We're relying on everyone to put their protocols in place, their measures, and to ensure that people who enter Gatwick, Schiphol, all the key airports, that they are not circumventing any systems, but they're going through the health protocols. We note as well that when people go on the flight, I'm sorry, something's on a little bit.
I think you're back now.
Okay, great stuff. Yeah, sorry, not sure what happened there. This never happens. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's fine.
Right, great stuff. Right, so as I've said, we've just got to ensure that in all the airports across the world, people follow the protocols. When they are on board, they follow the protocols, and when they land in the Caribbean. So we're working in a phased way. Now, many of our destinations, they have opened up to certain segments, as I've said, either it's regional tourism or it's countries that they're aligned to. Most destinations are going to assess what has happened during that process. Did it work? Did everything come together? Have we managed to mitigate the spread of COVID? Now, if we find out, but by working on that level, we're seeing an actual increase in cases, people have to be quarantined, then every destination in the Caribbean will go back to a collective plan. And remember, being many island states as well, we also have to ensure that our ports are protected as well, because it's quite easy to charter a yacht and just rock up anywhere in the Caribbean. So it's important to ensure that we're being mindful, we're aware as to who's in the communities, we have people in place who are qualified to check, to find out that people have done all the measures that they have to, and that the Caribbean remains safe to welcome visitors. So it's phased, it's about collaboration, and there's a lot of focus on keeping our communities safe also.
Yeah, it's a real shared responsibility, isn't it? Everybody, every part of the supply chain, the traveller, the airports, the cabin crew, the hoteliers, they all need to be doing everything they possibly can. Manuel, from Spain's point of view, I know this phased recovery has been very, very well planned, and you've issued quite a lot of information about it. What sort of guidelines are the hotels in the Balearics in Spain working towards? Has there been a nationwide kind of advice to hoteliers on what they should be doing, how many times they should be cleaning? Because I've got press releases from so many different hotels and resorts now saying we're doing this and we're doing that. Do you feel confident there is going to be consistency, and that everybody will be sort of keeping to the same rules? Well, you're on mute at the moment, Manuel, actually.
One moment. Just one moment. Here, I'm here. Yeah. These guides were provided by the Spanish Tourist Board, but were worked by all stakeholders implied in Spain. Also with the regional governments, we were there. We were just discussing, and we just get these guides. But the implementation of these guides, that are recommendations, are controlled by the regional government. So that's our relationship with the Spanish Tourism Board, and predominantly they are intended to be used by the tourism sector to ensure that the sector can open in a safe way. So the guides contained specifications for service, cleaning and disinfection, maintenance and risk management, as well as for the different subsectors and activities that form part of the tourism framework. The guidelines will mean that tourists have to be informed of preventative measures, and visitors can expect signage in English around their accommodation and details of the service conditions prior to making a booking. It's important for us because we want to show that our destination is not all for Spain, but here in Balearic Island is a safe destination. So we are very implied, all stakeholders. We have a very big consensus in all levels of the Balearic society. We have worked a lot during all these months to reopen our tourist industry, but with safety conditions. And due to this, today we are welcoming the first tourists in the island as a test to all these protocols we have implemented, and trying to resume tourist activity as soon as possible with the highest levels of safety. So,
and I'm sure everybody, and all the local stakeholders will be doing everything that they possibly can, but how can visitors feel sure that the rules and the protocols will be followed? It's quite difficult for you at a regional governmental level to oversee how hotels are maintaining standards, isn't it? Do we just have to trust that they will be doing everything that they need to do?
We have experimented here in our society such a big change in all that social commitment, and only two figures. You have to think that tourism for us is the 45% of our GDP. And I think there's the 32% of the Balearic jobs in tourism. So it's so important, the tourist sector, the tourist for us, that everyone is implied is committed, in the implementation of this regulation. Of course, we will be behind the scenes, just controlling and monitoring these procedures. But as I said, all the stakeholders, we are very committed and implemented, and that all function well. So that's true.
And Carol, different picture in the Caribbean, many small islands with their own independent governments. Are you seeing any kind of consistent protocols and guidelines being adopted across the region, or is every government doing its own thing? And how sort of advanced are those new protocols and systems?
Well, first of all, many of the Caribbean countries are linked by CARICOM, the Caribbean community, and and that is led at the Prime Minister's level. So the region is working collectively through CARICOM and the other regional agencies that have come together. So we do have a very clear and coordinated position. And this is important for us because, like Spain, a high percentage of the region's foreign exchange earnings comes from tourism. And also there is a high percentage of people employed either directly or indirectly in tourism. So for us, it's big business, and it's been business for many decades. And even in the schools, there are tourism awareness campaigns about the importance of tourism and the importance of sustaining our region. So the knowledge and the support is there, and also across the Caribbean, the coordination is there, because as I've mentioned before, that this coordination is not new to us. We have long worked together as a region in the recovery process. And although, of course, we get a lot of external aid, we've realized that there's a lot of strength in working with the resources that we have in the Caribbean. But one of the things that I also wanted to touch on is that these protocols won't only impact on the accommodation stay, whether it's a guest house, a hotel, a villa, Airbnb. It's also going to impact on the in-destination experience. So we've had to put additional protocols in place regarding the airport transfers. People are going to be reluctant to get into buses and taxis with others that they don't know. And also, of course, there's still an element of social distancing. So protocol goes beyond, the hotel, but in how people engage. And that's why one of the things we're really going to be pushing in the Caribbean is health and wellness, getting out into the community, going horseback riding, going dirt biking, going hiking, trekking, visiting some of the lesser known. So we're saying to everyone, we've got the best beaches in the world. Yes, Manuel, I did say that. We have the best beaches in the world in the Caribbean, and we know that the beaches will always be there. But what we're saying to everyone is that there's a lot to see in the Caribbean. There's a lot to experience, and now is the time to explore beyond the beach, to get some space between you and other people, and to really experience that natural environment that the Caribbean has to offer. So in the tours and in the experiences, people will see changes. They won't see buses packed anymore. And there's also going to be greater demand for people to have more exclusive tours, working with the local tour guides, with families just going out and doing their walking tours, their hiking, their cycling. So we're also going to use this COVID experience to encourage entrepreneurship in the Caribbean, and to encourage people to work more with our tour guides on a bespoke experience. And once homes and guest houses have been, ensured that they're licensed and they're following their COVID guidelines, there's also going to be the experience to do more in-home dining and going into homes and having cookery demonstrations and music and arts and culture. So we're looking at ways through social distancing to create more entrepreneurial opportunities in the Caribbean because the world is now saying, I no longer want to be a part of the pack. I want to be in an environment where I feel safe about the hygienes, the standards and the protocol. And these are some of the learnings that we can get out of this COVID experience, not only in the Caribbean, but across the globe.
That's a really interesting point. Actually, I wanted to ask a poll question about this. So I think if my colleague Naomi's around, she can perhaps put the poll up for me, just asking about this sort of trend, which we're talking about a lot at the moment, that people are going to want to get away from it all, enjoy the outdoors and have more exclusivity and remoteness and that kind of thing. And I was just interested to ask our delegates who are here whether the bookings and inquiries they've had for the Caribbean and the Balearics in the last couple of weeks or months would suggest that clients will be looking for something different post-COVID. So how will the poll work? There we go. We have a poll. So my question to everybody that's joined us is, do the bookings and inquiries you've had for the Caribbean and the Balearics suggest clients are looking for something different post-COVID? So your options are yes, I've seen more interest in villas or smaller hotels and resorts, or more remote parts of the destination, or wildlife and outdoors experiences. Perhaps, maybe it's a bit hard for you to say on relatively small inquiry numbers. We're conscious that people haven't necessarily been taking hundreds of bookings in the last few weeks. Or no, all of your inquiries and bookings have tended to be for quite similar locations, the same hotels, the same holiday styles as previously. So I'll let that poll run while I come to Manuel and ask your thoughts on that same point. Do you think what people are going to want to come to the Balearic Islands for is going to change because of the experience that we've lived through?
Of course, people who come here in Balearic Island, and we have our beaches. It's been an honor for us, Carl, that you compare our beaches with yours. Thank you for comparing them. But we offer a different kind of tourist activities. Overall, there's sun and sand, but we have a lot of cyclism tourism, cultural tourism, gastronomical, leisure, like lecture tourism, wellness tourism, and ecotourism. There are a lot of people who come here to see birds, and from UK overall. And we have a variety of different touristic products. So if you come here to the Balearic Island, you can experiment, have a different experience if you want. And they're all complementary products. So you can lie on the beach in the morning, and you can climb a mountain in the afternoon and going to have dinner in a very fancy restaurant and in the evening. So we are just reinforcing that there are a lot of activities that you can do alone or not alone with the social distance. For example, riding on a bike, climbing a mountain, and there's a lot of things you can do with the safety barriers. So we try to show people that we have a lot of things to do here in Balearic Island, that we are waiting for us, and there are a lot of things, sand overall, but a lot of tourist products that we are promoting, and I think it's a very good moment this year to prove it, to try a different thing here in Balearic Island.
Encourage something different. Yeah, I'll end the poll there. There's some interesting results actually. I think it will be, I think we'll be able to share it with everybody. About a third of our guests said that they have seen an increase in interest in villas, smaller hotels and resorts, being in more remote parts of a destination, wildlife and outdoors experiences. About 40% said they've not seen a definite trend so far. So that's interesting. There was a little bit of a shift there, that agents and operators are getting asked about slightly different holidays, which is great. Okay, next question. Oh, just move that poll across. How do you think there is more that the actual governments and tourist boards can be doing to proactively incentivize tourism to return. We've seen a few interesting things in the headlines. I saw the Cyprus government has said that they will pay the expenses of anybody that goes to Cyprus and gets COVID while they're there, for example, and that's quite a proactive, almost financial commitment on the government side. What is the Balearics Tourist Board and government doing, Manuel, apart from supporting the local hoteliers? Are there any incentives in place, or are you working with the UK market in any interesting ways?
Yeah, of course. It's important for us. Let people know that we are prepared to receive them. So we are working very hard in our source markets. It's true that we have started in the German market because it has a very near epidemiological situation as we have here in Balearic Island. So we have started in the German market, and there is a lot of people interested in coming here this season in the Balearic Island, and we are doing a lot of promotion, a lot of marketing campaigns in Germany, and we will start very soon in the UK, because there is a very important we have two source markets, in one important source market, one is Germany and one is UK. So we will start very soon to making promotion, marketing campaigns. I think marketing online is very useful these days, and we are trying to show how our islands have coped with the epidemic. So it's just for getting everybody to know that we are a safe destination. We are the same people, the same island, but now we are safe. So we have to start with this claim in Germany, and we will start very soon in UK too.
So do you expect that "we're safe, please come and see us" message to be core to how you promote the destination? It's been interesting seeing how different destinations have tackled this. Some prefer to continue with previous branding and positioning and not talk too much about what's happened in the last few months. Do you think it would be important for Balearics to be very open and really address that head on and make that core to your message?
Yeah, of course. For us, it's very important because, as I've said before, safety and security will be a very important item in the power of purchase of the customer. So we have to offer this variable, that it's safety. I know there's a lot of countries that are doing a lot of promotion in its inbound market, for example, Italy, but we are decided to put our odds in the international market, because Spain and Balearic Island, for us, the international arrivals are the 2/3 of our total arrivals. So we were looking to give this message that we are very keen on you, that we have a lot of relationship between all 40 years or 50 years, and we are very safe. And so you will be here easy and easygoing, and just taking advantage of our sun, our beaches, our touristical products, and then having fun, but safe fun.
And we've got a couple of questions actually, which I'll ask you at this point, Manuel. Just some of our guests were asking for a bit of clarity about UK visitors coming to Spain. So obviously, we mentioned that you're moving into the next phase from the 21st of June and hoping to welcome more tourists back. But as I understand it at the moment, because of our FCO advice, that's not necessarily going to be UK visitors, is it?
Just the beginning, in the 22nd of June, our frontiers will be open. So we just only thinking about people who come here has to have a very near epidemiological situation than we have here, and there will be controls and tests before you enter, and you have to fill a health questionnaire, and there will be a lot of innovation projects that we will put through, like tracking, counting capacities in beaches, and there's a lot of investment doing that. So we are starting, but we have to be safe, and we have to be safe for visitors and for hosts. So we have to try to follow the implementation procedure, and everyone will be invited, just keeping this safety alive and working. So you are welcome.
So the removal of the quarantine when people arrive, that doesn't apply to the UK at the moment. That is other arrivals.
Yeah, this is a thing that there is not on our behalf here, the regional Balearic government, and there is a thing that is it's for the Spanish government at all, but that it's true. But we will be very careful with all the people who come in a different epidemiological situation, right, than us. Okay. So for us, well, I think it's not for nowadays the demand of flights from UK to Spain. It's not so important, because the problem here is the connectivity. For getting to our islands, you need a flight or a boat. So governments, administrations can ease the restrictions for letting people in, but if there is no flight, there is no people. So there wouldn't be flights if there's not a demand. So there's a lot of other things that are implied in this market. So as soon as people from UK can come to Spain, they will increase the flights, and there will be the moment that we have to think about these things. That is my opinion. But as I said, it's not a point of the regional government of the Balearic Islands.
Yeah. Carol, a couple of questions for you specifically as well, or one from Natasha, who asks, is it compulsory in any parts of the Caribbean to wear a face mask, like we're now having to wear face masks on public transport? Is that something you know about, whether there are islands or situations where face masks are compulsory at the moment?
Yeah.
Yes, there are islands, and there's an excellent resource. It's a site that has been put together by the Caribbean Hotel and Tourist Association, and it's called Caribbean Travel Advisories. And my colleague Florian, who's on this call, he did put the link in the chat. Now, because we have so many different countries, that I'm saying to the agents, that is an excellent place to go to and to get. It lists every single destination in the Caribbean, and it will give you an outline as to what their requirements will be, because some will require a mask in resorts, some on public transport. It's really important to check the information, but the good thing is that the facts are there for you. You can also go to the official website of the Caribbean Tourism Organization in Barbados. That's onecaribbean.org, and they can also share a lot of the information with you. So to our agents and partners here today, any destination that your clients or even yourself you're thinking of traveling to, just check out the information, because the information is there for you. But we will be encouraging people in certain areas to wear a mask, and if that's what has been requested by that destination, that's because they want to reduce the risk of any form of spread. And also, we've seen that people get nervous. We've seen that if you're in a setting and someone coughs, even if it's or sneeze just due to hay fever, it makes other people nervous. So it's about also putting people at ease, but every single destination is listed on that portal, and it's okay to check it out and to follow the guidelines within destination. And people also want that level of safety. And Pippa, on the subjects of masks, and I also just want to stress that in the Caribbean, there is always a push towards sustainability. And what we're being mindful of is the increase in single-use plastics right now, with all the protective gear and the use and the increased use of people with masks. So what we're saying to everyone is that we need to be mindful that many of our destinations are already working hard to get rid of any form of waste that is increased by having visitors there. So while we're looking about keeping people safe, saying that you should wear a mask or you shouldn't wear a mask, what we also want people to follow will be the guidelines within the Caribbean in disposing of the equipment that they use. So it's not only about protecting ourselves physically, but it's about protecting the environment as well, so that if they spend the day on the beach, they take off the mask, you don't leave it there, you know. And some of the hotels, you know, they're using more single-use plastic because people are worried about hygiene and cleaning. But then it's, how do these islands dispose of them? So dealing with this COVID has presented so many other challenges that destinations, island states need to be mindful of, because we're about protecting our coastline, our marine line, our reefs, etc. So we've got to make sure that we don't have literally, you know, this explosion of waste, you know, going into our seas, our rivers, our lakes, you know. So we've really got to be thinking holistically about tourism, about the recovery, how we phase it in, and how we take care of people and our environments as well in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Another question for you, Carol, relating to what we were talking about before. Gwen is very interested in some of the new products and the new focuses you talked about, the, you know, bespoke tours, spending, you know, getting out into the outdoors, away from the beaches and so on. She asks, when would the UK travel trade have access to those products? Do you think new products are actually being created, or they're just being sort of highlighted?
No, new products are always being created because people have to find a way to sustain themselves. And one of the things that we do have a list of all the DMCs across the Caribbean. So for those agents who need that information, they can just contact us. They can email digital@caribbean.co.uk, and we can get this information to them. Also, if they go on our website, caribbean.co.uk, they will see that we've listed the training dates that we have across the UK and Europe for the agents. Now, most of these will be done online, but if the opportunity arises, we won't turn it down to meet face to face and network. But when we have these programs, we're going to be talking more about some of the new initiatives and how people can engage. Some of these initiatives are not new. Destinations, for example, like Jamaica, for years they've had their Meet the People program where you can engage more on that level, and more destinations are looking at having those kind of engagement and experiences which are more bespoke and more niche. So definitely, I think you said Gwen, if Gwen contact us, follows us on our website, social media, Facebook, you're going to see a lot more of the opportunities that are taking place. But for the Caribbean, remember, a lot of destinations are not yet open, but they are going through the training. I've seen where many of the standard agencies across the Caribbean are actually doing webinars for the community, because we know that some of the larger hotels like Sandals and Hilton and AM Resorts, they will have their protocols in place for health and safety. But some of the smaller properties are going to rely more on their national standard and health agencies to guide them on the protocols. And of course, they're going to be learning from some of the bigger accommodation providers. So Gwen, and to the other agents who are getting ready, gearing up to sell the Caribbean, keeping with contact with us, follow us on social media. We will continue to get a flow of information out there. And another quick point as well, you know, you spoke about the incentives, and that's a big discussion that's been going on in the Caribbean right now. Who should pay for the tests? Who should pay for these things? And we haven't yet come up with a solution in every country, because I think what the Caribbean is more focusing on is making it clear as to what the health requirements are in order to enter the Caribbean, working and ensuring that the experience is there for people. And also for us, there's a lot of focus on the trade. You know, we've been doing lots of training. There have been great training with My Caribbean Rewards, which has been put on by My Booking Rewards. So there's training out there. And as soon as it's possible, we want to work with our airline partners, destination partners, and hotels to get agents back into the Caribbean, because we feel that you, the agents, you really are the spokespersons for what the Caribbean and other regions have to offer. So I think many of us, if we have financial resources to put into the recovery process, would like to see agents come to the Caribbean for themselves, experience the whole chain that their clients will have to go through when they enter. And then when their clients are speaking to them about tours and experiences and dining out, they're actually able to say, well, we've done this. This was the way to approach it. This was our experience. This is our feedback. So there's so many ways in which you can go about providing incentives, but we, are a strong advocate in the Caribbean of experiencing it for yourself, experiencing the new way of doing business, and share your feedback. Because, whenever I take agents down to the Caribbean, they're always so useful in sharing different ways to do things, because sometimes we can get so blinded by it because it's part of our norm. So when someone else comes in, they're actually able to say, well, that airport experience could have been more efficient if you did something else. So for me, it's going to be great to have the agents train with us online, train with us face to face, get back into the Caribbean and share their advice as to how we can continue to improve the process.
One final related question on that, Carol. An attendee's asked, these new experiences and bespoke private tours, do you expect they're going to cost more? Is the consumer going to have to pay more really to enjoy these more exclusive experiences?
I don't think people will set out for them to cost more, but basically it's the economies of scale. If a couple say we prefer, or a family of four say we prefer to have certain experiences, then obviously the cost of doing that same experience for a group of 10 people may have to be shared by smaller groups. But at the end of the day, it's about the health, the safety, the experience, and what people want that makes them feel comfortable. There are other people who'll be happy to be a part of slightly larger tours, but the reality is that globally, we're going to have to put practices in place that are in line with social distancing. So I can't really say if the experiences will cost more, because also some of them will just be having your guide to walk with. And I always say that when we pay for these services, we're not actually paying for the 1 hour that person, or the 2 hour that person spends with us, but the number of years that they have spent to get that level of expertise and knowledge so that they can offer a truly authentic experience. So the best people to tell you what their pricing structure will be the various DMCs and tour guides across the Caribbean. But the role that we can certainly play is to work with the destinations so that some of these tours and experiences are more prominent on the website, because some people won't know how to book them or who to speak to. And also things will be bespoke according to the needs of your clients. Contact the DMCs, we can provide the list, tell them what your needs are, if people need additional care, if they have limited ability, whatever it is, the Caribbean is able to work with you. But it's all about communicating and just really taking advantage of services that have always existed. It's not new in the Caribbean, but there is just greater demand and inquiries, as your poll has shown. People are now inquiring more, but these services have always existed.
Yeah, I think some of the more unusual, niche, but bespoke kind of experiences have sometimes been a bit harder for the trade to access, haven't they? So great to hear that there's more happening there to connect travel agents with the right people. Even if the UK tour operator hasn't taken it on yet, they could be booking it directly and offering something a little bit more unexpected.
Yeah, if they contact us, we're happy to recommend DMCs across the region who we've worked with. And a lot of these DMCs will also be at World Travel Market, which is scheduled to take place, and other events. So, you know, it's always good to speak to them as well and to engage with them.
Manuel, how important a role do you think that travel agents in the UK can play here in terms of helping to communicate your messages to their customers and giving that reassurance at the moment that that it will be safe very soon to visit Balearics?
Of course, the travel agents are very important in this time being, because people now need information of the destination, and it's the same as you are going to travel to some African country. The first thing you ask yourself, is that country, it's safe, it's not safe, what are the things you have to do and you don't have to do, and that's why you go to a travel agent. So I think information is a very good value now for all customers, and travel agents have a very important role in giving this information to them. So it's important we administration just to talk, to contact, to have a very strong bond between us in just giving this information from here to the travel agents, and then the travel agent to the customer. So that's the importance that in this time being we will have the travel agents again. And there's a good point to tell them that when all things go back to normal, they will resume again fan trips to all the travel agents, all the UK travel agents, and we are looking at ways to engage travel agents, and we work very close with very good partners of us like Jet2 and other companies to support the trade. So it's important to maintain and to strengthen this bond between administrations and travel agents, and we are looking forward to doing that.
Got another question, and I'm not sure if you will be able to say any more on this, Manuel, but I didn't want to ignore the question. One of our guests just asking if there is any more clarity you can give in terms of the situation for UK residents arriving in the Balearic Islands. They say they've got clients booked to stay in Ibiza and Mallorca this summer, and they don't know whether to advise them to cancel or encourage the clients to hold out for an agreement in terms of an air bridge. I imagine there's not much more you can say about that. It's a Spanish government level decision.
It's the Spanish government level on behalf of these items, and so I don't know how to say, but you maybe call your embassy or just foreign affairs and here in England, and then we're going to the Spanish embassy there in consulates in UK and just ask. It will be very easy.
Yeah, we can certainly be pushing from our side too. I mean, it's been such a mess.
I'm sorry, but I don't have this information.
No, I understand. We had one more poll, I think, that we wanted to do. If Naomi can help me get that poll up, and then I'll ask you both about this. So I know there has been some talk in the press that, you know, will British holidaymakers feel welcome in certain places, because we have experienced the coronavirus much worse here than in many of the places that we're looking to travel to. Just wanted to ask our guests this afternoon, do you worry that your British UK resident clients will not feel welcome if they do travel in the next few months? So you might answer yes, we pose far more risk to other countries than they do to us. Perhaps, depending how much worse the situation has been in that country compared to here in the UK. Or no, any economy that depends on tourism is going to be glad to see us back when we're able to actually get back there. So just waiting for the responses to come in. What do you think, Carol? I know tourism is such a big part of the economy for those Caribbean destinations, but do you think those that aren't involved in tourism might be a little bit trepidatious about the prospect of British holidaymakers coming in quite soon with our much higher incidence and death rate here in the UK?
Well, the largest market for the Caribbean is the US market. And so the same challenge exists there. And that is why it's important to have those protocols in place. The Caribbean governments didn't make those up just to have something to do. They looked at the risk that, in opening up for tourism would create to their communities, and the other sector, the health, because we have a limited amount of hospital beds in the Caribbean, and they looked at the risk. And therefore, all of these programs and plans that have been put in place have been a direct response to mitigating the risk levels. So that's why, we've had questions about masks, about testing on arrival, airport procedures, social distancing. They're all elements of a strategy that has been put in place to mitigate the risk. So yes, there are people, particularly those who are not necessarily in tourism, that will be nervous about it, and quite rightly, because they've watched the news, they've seen what's happened in North America, in the UK, so they will be worried. And because the governments know that the communities will be worried, that's why they've had to clearly state what the steps are, and they've also had to include the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the port authorities in the discussions, and it's being done at the CARICOM level and other regional levels. Everyone has been involved in that whole program of minimizing the risk of a second wave in the Caribbean. And should there be a wave in the Caribbean, they phase this whole recovery, so they know that in the first phase, if there's a risk, we won't go to the second phase. We'll have to go to plan B. So the Caribbean has thought about this strategically, and that's why protocols are in place, because some people will be afraid, and they've had to tell them what they will do in case those fears are realized. So it's all part of a process. There is a risk, but we're working on it.
And Manuel, do you worry that there might be a minority of local residents who aren't very excited about the Brits coming back, and might affect the friendliness of the welcome that we might usually expect?
We are very proud of our long-term relationships with the United Kingdom, and that so many British visitors choose our island as their holiday destination. Historically, the UK has been the #1 market to Menorca and #2 to Ibiza and Mallorca. And despite Brexit uncertainties and the demise of Thomas Cook, British visitors have increased year by year. So we are very proud of these relationships. And the UK is one of our most important source markets, and we have, of course, safety is imperative, and that must come first. But we feel confident that we are moving on to the next stage, and the British people will be welcome in a way that will be safe and responsible, of course.
Yeah. Actually, our audience today was reasonably positive. Only 4% said outright that their clients might be worried that they won't feel welcome. Most saying that it does very much depend on the individual destination and the situation that they've experienced there. But almost half said any economy that depends on tourism is going to be quite glad to see us back. So quite a lot of positivity from our guests for sure. We have come to 3 o'clock, so I must wrap up quite soon, but just wanted to try and blast through a couple of additional questions. To both of you, will there be any kind of limiting on the numbers of people allowed into the region from different destinations over the current weeks? Have any kind of thresholds been put in place to say only a certain number from this market and this market and this market?
Pippa, I wouldn't necessarily say that there have been concrete limits, but the reality is that certainly from the UK market, the fact that we don't have sufficient flights yet will limit it for us. So, we will be governed by the flights, as Manuel said. You're talking about predominantly islands, even in this case. So, the flights will dictate for us the levels that will enter the Caribbean for sure. And also, even in the cruise industry, we have seen a number of cruise companies, stagger, when their cruise ships will return to the Caribbean. So I think it's not so much that we will dictate yet, as more to the availability of flights. Now, to go back to what we said about health, safety, and risk, should we see that because of the whole track and trace that the Caribbean will also have in place in case there's a second wave, and should we see a surge in cases from any particular markets, then I think it's going to be fair to say that the Caribbean will definitely have to put restrictions in place, because it also means that within that source market then there is a challenge, or else we would not see the impact of that in the Caribbean. And that's why we've said this whole collaboration is so important. So for us right now, there aren't sufficient flights, but if we see a surge, then we will move to the next phase of the plan, because it has to be monitored at every phase. Because as I've said to a number of people, COVID is something right now that we're going to have to live with. It's not something that's going to go away. We're going to have to live with it. And therefore, any plans that any region in the world puts place has to be sustainable. And we have to be tracking and monitoring the different phases, and at each stage put in place what we need to mitigate the risk. So it's a process, and it's going to be a continuous one going into 2021 as well. We're going to have to learn to live with COVID.
Manuel, does kind of keeping a close eye on capacity from different destinations form part of your longer term plans? As Carol says, a lot of it is going to be led by which airlines put which routes back on and sell which seats first, isn't it? But is managing the recovery part of your framework?
Look, here in the Balearic Island, and we are a very little island, we have 16.5 million people last year visiting us. 16.5 million people, it's a lot of people. So we have a large capacity, and there's plenty of room for all of you. So we are, seriously, we are thinking that only the 25 till 50% of our business will be recovered in 2020. So this summer season and low season or shoulder season of this 2020, there will be a lot of capacity and accommodations here in the Balearic Island for all of you. And also we can say that I think this COVID epidemic has changed us, or I hope so. So our behavior always, I think, would change too. So maybe we are trying to have fun, but a safe fun. So we were not looking to a lot of people in the places. We just want to have a different experience. But in which we are talking about capacity here in Balearic Island 2020, we have, as I said, a lot of room for you. So don't worry.
It's not going to be a problem this summer and autumn, we don't expect. I'm sorry we don't have more time. We did have a couple more questions to get through. I might be able to respond to some people individually, but thank you very much to everybody who's joined us and has asked questions. I hope you found some of those answers helpful. A huge thank you to Manuel and Carol for giving us your time this afternoon, and it's really exciting to be looking ahead with you with such positivity about how this recovery is finally getting going. If anybody joined us late, don't worry, we will post the entire seminar on t2gmedia.com, so you can watch it from the beginning. That should be online later today or maybe tomorrow. And just a final reminder about the other things going on as part of TTG's Destinations Festival this week. If you are a travel agent or tour operator and you would like to meet and learn from our 6 destination partners, which are Atlantic Canada, The beaches are Fort Myers and Sanibel, Jamaica, Samoa, South Tyrol and Queensland. Then definitely check out ttgmedia.com/DestFest so you can sign up to come to our training event on Wednesday. We've got some Facebook Live masterclasses going on as well. So thank you again for joining us. Huge thank you to my panelists, Carol and Manuel. Hope everybody has a good week and keep safe, and hopefully see you again at another TTG event soon.
Thank you, Pippa. And just remind everyone, caribbean.co.uk for all your information.
Do you have a website to promote, Manuel?
Thank you all attendees and you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Manuel.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.